My name is Kevin Rutherford. I'm here to talk about life through my life. Welcome to the Accelerate Through Life podcast. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've got another special guest for you today. This man has been very successful, it seems like, in almost anything that he's done. Currently, he's the husband to Janet Staley, the father to Logan and Ryan, and he's a granddad to two beautiful grandbabies. Man, he owns the United States Modified Touring Series, the USRA Racing Series, Mason City and Hamilton County Speedway. Gosh, am I missing anything there?
No, that's plenty. We don't. The only good thing is we don't own the two racetracks. I rent them from a fair board, so
there you go.
I put a lot of money into them, so I probably should own them, but we don't.
Well, without further ado, welcome to the show, Todd Staley. Thank you so much for being here today.
You bet. Thanks for having me, sir.
What's the hardest, like when I listed that out, I think I kind of got a little bit of anxiety just saying all of it. What's the hardest part about operating all of those organizations?
Oh, just, I mean, we have a great crew, so it all starts right there. So that takes a lot of the pressure off of Janet and I. We have about 8 employees that work for us. Ryan takes care of a lot of the marketing. Casey in our office takes care of all the licenses and takes care of some racetracks on the USRA side of it. And then Sarah's our track manager at the Hamilton County Speedway. Ryan's my track manager at Mason City Motor Speedway. So I work on the schedule. I got several sponsors that I still work on, and Janet's taking care of all the bookkeeping and the 1099s and all that good stuff. So it's all it all kind of comes together very nicely. As soon as we get done racing, I've already pretty much have a schedule kind of tentatively put together once our season is over. So we kind of have an idea what our plans are. And then, of course, we have Darla, one of the best tech guys around that does a great job and keeps the rules tight. And as you can see with our series this year, we had 18 different winners in 35 races, and no one won over 5 races. So that says a lot about the series. So even in the USRA side of things, Darla works with other racetracks and other tech inspectors and is always looking to, I don't know if it's keep our rules very competitive. That's kind of what we'll go with. We feel that we have a very good competitive set of rules in all of our classes. It just all blends together very nicely.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, you can't do it without a crew for sure. I actually had your USMTS champion on the show just here recently, Rodney Sanders. Curious, how do you think that interview went? Oh,
I'm sure it went good. Rodney's a great interviewer. He's a very humble person, and we appreciate Rodney being on the series. And he's a hell of a racer too.
Yeah, man, he's definitely one of the best. All right, well, let's jump right into this thing. Being a promoter in anything, like that, not just racing, but in anything, is one of the hardest possible tasks because it's physically impossible to make everybody happy, right? Like there's always going to be somebody pissed off at Todd Staley. So I'm curious. I want the listeners to hear, how do you handle the criticism and the outside noise and just keep pushing forward?
It's just one of those things. When I first started, and I've worked at a racetrack since I was like 5 years old, and I'm 50 now. So we used to live right up by the Hamilton County Speedway in Webster City. So I've been around it a very long time. And when I first started doing more of the promoting part of it, I promoted some races before we started USMTS. And when they used to have the Who Won board, which is, of course, down in your area, the Texas area, whowon.com and the bench racing, and everybody would get on there and they would hammer on you a lot. And my mom used to see that stuff too. And I mean, it got very frustrating. You'd go make a comment and then people would hammer on you some more. And what we've kind of learned is you just have to just take it with a grain of salt, because for every one person you're pissing off, you usually have 100 that are happy with what you got going on. So, and people just in the world we live in today, you don't get the good comments. All you ever hear is the negative stuff, and that's what makes it probably the hardest thing. But I've just learned over the years, you just keep rolling on with what you got going on, and I mean, if you say something, I mean, everybody, no one's perfect. There's no one that's perfect in life, and we're all going to screw up sooner or later, and you just keep digging. And with our product, like I said earlier, our product shows. I mean, we average 57 modifieds at a race, and the USRA is doing very well. So just keep kicking along.
Yeah, so I mean, and I want to highlight that really quick. You averaged 57 modifieds at the USMTS races this year?
Yes, yeah. We started out the season at Rocket and had 87 or 89 cars the very first night, and all year long we just kept on kicking. And then we finished up at the Jamboree and had 81 cars there the first night, which we haven't seen that number for quite a few years at the end of the year. And then in between, we did have a few smaller races. We had some 30s, and then, of course, our 25th anniversary race, we had 71 cars. So it don't take many of those bad races to make up for the good ones. So especially if you have more good ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's certainly, you have to be proud of what you've created. And I don't pay attention to all the racing series, maybe like you do or that you hear about. If you guys are watching or listening to this on the podcast, then you can't see it, but this man is like 10 shades darker tan-wise than I am, because I show up and sell real estate every day indoors, and he's out working on racetracks and putting together schedules and all those things. So, man, I guess my next question would be this. If I was new to the sport, how would you describe your series versus some of the other touring series or racing sanctions?
Oh, we tell them that the USMTS series is it's the World of Outlaw late models, or the Lucas Oil late models, or the World of Outlaw sprint cars. We have the best of the best that are in the modified ranks. For years and years and years, we've listened to people say that this is never going to work, never going to work. We have great drivers. You've raced with us, so you know. Some racetracks you go to on a weekly basis, you get beside someone, you know you're going to get your stuff tore up. Well, when you're racing with the USMTS, they don't want to work on their cars any more than you do, and they'll race you side by side clean. And one little bobble will cost you 2 or 3 spots, and we do have very incredible racing, and it's hard to believe after 25 years that we're still able to keep it going. And our biggest problem that we honestly face in today's world is we have some of the best racing out there. We just got to get more people watching it more often.
So I guess kind of what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is we need to continue to grow Racing Dirt.
Racing Dirt does very well, and they got good numbers. We need to get more people coming to the races and seeing our racers at the track. So we're not saying that they're all bad, because we have several that do very good, especially when you get up north, get up in the Deer Creek Speedway, and people that know Derek Ramirez and Jake O'Neill and all these people. We've had jamborees before where someone new will come. Take, for example, like a Chase Holland from Mississippi. He shows up and he sells $5,000, $10,000 worth of T-shirts in a weekend. He's like, "Oh my God, this was just awesome!" So then they come out and they run the series. They start running the series. And, when you come out to do the series, you just got to be prepared, because you're going to take some butt whoopings. And people, that's one of the things that probably drives me the most crazy, is everybody's like, "You want to see your guys win?" And it's like, no, you're a little mixed up. I was probably, the night Jack Sartain won, I was probably more happy for Jack than Jack was happy. But no, I love seeing locals come in and show these guys how to get around a racetrack, and it's just cool.
Yeah, well, and I kind of want to highlight that. One of my questions was what year you started the USMTS, but you said that you started it 25 years ago, correct?
Yep, 1999 was the first year.
Man, and it's definitely grown into the premier modified series across the country. So my question is why did you start it, and what did you do before you started the USMTS?
So I've always worked at the racetracks around here, around Webster City. I worked at Marshalltown. I worked at Denison. So I've always been involved in that. And there was a couple guys, Dale Danielski and Doug Scheckler, who worked for IMCA, that had left and started the USMS at the time. And it was the United States Modified Series. And they kind of went bankrupt they asked me to work for them, and I did in 1997. I was the flag man and did some stuff for them. And then in 1998, they had me run the series, and I kind of knew where it was headed, that they were going to be done. And of course that year they didn't pay out their point fund and left me in a bad spot, which I had told the drivers all year long. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but don't plan on anything. Sure enough, that happened. And then in 1999, we just said, well, this thing's going kind of good and we kind of like it. And racing's been in my blood for my entire life. So let's go ahead and just start it. And we'll call it the United States Modified Touring Series. We'll add a little T in there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and kind of piggybacking off of that, listen, I'm a new parent, and it's been the biggest adjustment of anything I've ever done in my life. What was it like? You have two awesome sons. What was it like raising them on the road while running the USMTS series?
Oh, it was, the problem was we were very young parents. So we like to have fun too. So that was probably one of the hardest parts is just going out there and doing what we did. And, I mean, now they're involved with the racing, and it's turned out to be a great deal. And at our 25th anniversary race, Ryan was like, he thought we were going to just say, okay, Ryan, it's all yours to take over at our little dinner we had for everybody. And that wasn't the case. So, but no, it's been awesome being able to do this as a family. Not many people get to experience being with their family, and it's great that I get to work with my wife day in and day out every day. Sure, we've had our times where it isn't much fun, but at the end of the day, it's all about being part of the family.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of getting back to the 2023 USMTS series, and we talked about this year was a success with as many modifieds as you had showing up at each event. Past that, what made the 2023 USMTS season a success in Todd Staley's eyes?
Oh, just I would say that like I said, the biggest thing was this year we ended up with, we lost some really good races early in the year, and then we lost some at the end of the year. But when you open the season and you have 80, I don't remember whether 87 or 89 cars at the Rocket Raceway, Kevin Sester's got a beautiful facility there. It just goes to show you that we have a great product. We've kind of, one thing, well, we can talk about that later about Texas tracks, but, and then, I mean, once we raised our point fund to the $100,000 to win the championship, when I started this in 1999, Kelly Sherrod got $5,000, and it's just, I mean, it was like a total of $17,000 point fund, and now our point fund is $270,000. So it's pretty crazy what it's become in 25 years. And then of course our payouts, and actually we're going to change those for 2024. But two years ago, last year, we went to 3,000 win, 5,000 win, 10,000 win. And then this year we had a lot of 3-day shows at one racetrack, and sure made it a lot more fun, because you get done racing at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. By the time you get all your stuff done, pay out the drivers and everything, I mean, now you're talking 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you're headed to the next racetrack to go do the same thing again. And the 3-day shows made it fun, and I think that that was one of the things that made it a very successful season. Then, of course, all of our sponsors. I mean, you can't do this stuff without sponsors, and we had a great bunch of sponsors on board, and so it was that's definitely. And then the final thing was, like I said, we averaged 57 cars, and out of the 35 races, we had 18 different winners and 17 different chassis. Well, there's not another company in racing that can probably say that.
No, that is incredible. I was just thinking, when we kicked this thing off and you were talking about Janet doing the 1099s and the stuff behind this is probably the first year in maybe 10 years, don't quote me on that, but somewhere in that range that I'm not getting a 1099 from you guys. So kind of sad about that.
You're racing a sprint car.
Well, I've been racing the sprint car, but we've still been racing the modified. That when y'all were down south, I had just had my baby boy actually the same weekend that you guys were at Rocket. So I wasn't going to take off and go racing, especially not with my first child. I'd like to stay married. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
But I do kind of I want to highlight the Texas tracks real quick. and discuss that, because one of the things that motivated me, and I guess I should start out with this disclaimer first. I love the Texas tracks around here because I grew up at them, right?
Yep.
And yet I 100% agree with you that when you go to race with any professional series, whether it be in the sprint car or be in the modified, you get your stuff tore up less typically, right? Not to say that things don't happen, but they seem to happen a lot less, because you know that you're going to be racing with these guys again the next night and the next night, next night.
Yep.
So one of the reasons we took off and decided to start racing with you guys, of course, it was to get better and to continue to work on our race team and me as a driver, because I know that, man, getting your butt kicked by your drivers only makes you better, right? Every time. And I'll never forget at the end of 2020, I went on your Kansas swing to end the year, and I didn't make any of the 3 main events. And I came back the next Saturday and won a local big show here by half a track.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's just the difference. And I mean, and you know, we were talking to Rodney on a previous episode, and you know, 2 things I'll say that he said is, the first one is he also liked staying at one track for 3 days. Want to throw that in there. He was a big fan of that as well, because it's hard. You know, but secondly is that the clean racing, right? And everybody's going to race you clean. So what makes the dirt? Is it the dirt that makes the racing different? Right? What is the difference in the different types of racing product that we get, and why do certain tracks not race as good as others?
Yeah, I would say that probably dirt. I mean, there are some promoters out there that think that they can just show up on Friday for a Friday night race and have the racetrack ready, and that's not the way that this works. I mean, if you want to do it right, I mean, you got to work on your track all week, honestly. And I mean, once you get your track established and have a good base on it, then you can kind of like what I have at Mason City. I know what I have, and I can go up there on Sundays and make it work. But if I have a chance during the week, I might slide up there and just do some work on the track. But I think that's probably one of the biggest things with it. And then, of course, weather plays such a major role in the racetracks. I mean, we come down and we've been to Rocket the last 2 years, which we'd had some races at Petty over the past years. And Kevin's like, God, we need to do this race in June so I can give them guys a racetrack like I know I can. Well, this year at the Brian Mize, Jason Hughes says to me, he's like, Todd, that was probably the slickest, funnest racetrack I've ever been on. He's like, man, Sester has that place rocking, and he's like, we need to have a race down there that time of year. And it's like, well, we like to open down there because, of course, we got snow up in Iowa. And it'd just be nice if we could get down there and have a nice spring so we could, I guess it's still winter when we go down there, but have a nice winter where, I mean, there's been times where January, it's nicer in January than it is when we get down there in March. And so,
yeah.
But I do feel that the dirt and Mother Nature is probably one of the. I mean, we've been to KSP where racetrack was beautiful, smooth, and Bo always can make a good racetrack. But we've also been there after they've had an inch or 2 inches of rain, and man, that was probably one of the roughest racetracks we've been on. So, I mean, and the worst thing that people can do is get out there on social media and start bitching about it, in my opinion. So, I mean, they know what kind of racetrack they're going to get 90% of the time when they come and race with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And you know, I also want to highlight, because some people may not know this if they haven't raced with you or just witnessed it, but I've actually seen you at not your own tracks, at other tracks, get up early and get on equipment to go give us a better surface to race on. And there's not many people that run touring series that get out there and do that. So definitely think that it's worth mentioning, right? That you try to go the extra mile for your racers. For both you A, you don't want to hear the racers crying about it, and B, you want to have a good product for the fans, right?
Oh, exactly. I mean, like I'll come down and help Kevin in the summer or in the spring. I'll definitely be on the grader or on the sheep's foot, whatever he wants me to do. And if tracks ask for help, we'll give it to them. Most tracks think that they know what they're doing and they don't want any help. And but no, if I mean, Humboldt a couple of years ago, they had a terrible spring, and Bob Tim was there, and myself and other people, and we do what we need to make the racetracks good, because we don't want to see racetracks we don't want to see the race cars get torn up. We don't want to see bad accidents happen, and all the above.
Well, at the time of this recording, you haven't announced the USMTS 2024 schedule, but what's in store? Can you give us a little bit of hints or insight on what's in store for the 2024 USMTS season? Will it look similar to what they had in 2023, or what can they expect?
No, it's not going to look similar. We got rid of a lot of our 3-day shows. So sorry, Rodney. We're going to have a lot of 2-day shows. We did change our purses up. We still have some 10,000 win races, but we've lowered them to 5,000. We've lowered a lot of races to 5,000 win, and we went up to 800 to start or 900 to start on a lot of races. So that's going to be better. We're trying to make it. Racing is just so expensive, and we want to make sure that all the racers are trying to get taken care of. Like a 3-day show now, if we have a 3-day show, it's going to pay. I think that the drivers can make $1,950 if I remember. I mean, if you come and make all 3 shows, you're going to. I think it was guaranteed you'll be $1,950, where before it was like $1,500. So we want to make sure that all the racers are making a little bit of money at all the races. And when you have a 10,000 win race, there's only one person that's taking home that 10,000. Then the rest of them are taking home less. So, and I don't call it a participation trophy because, there's 80 cars there and they're not all getting taken care of. So, we qualify 26 or 24 or 26 cars at a race. So there's still a lot of cars that are going home with just their tow money. But just being part of the series is what makes it fun. And it shows you how you stack up against the good modified drivers. But our season's going to kick off down in Texas. We're going to be down there for 2 weeks, the first 2 weekends of March. So we're going to come down there. Hopefully the Texas drivers will come and support the events. That's one reason why we kind of cut back coming down there is a lot of drivers, when we'd come around, they would stay away. But now they're going to have a chance to come and race for some good money, even if you don't win the race. But we're going to start out in Greenville at Hunt County Raceway. Then we're going to go up to the Rocket Raceway. Then we're going to be off for a couple weeks. We'll do our King of America race, and then we're going to go to Boot Hill. And then we go back up into Oklahoma, and then we go up, and because we got our Jamboree rained out last season, we're going to have first April 20th, I think it's the 6th and 7th or 7th and 8th of April. We're going to have finish up our Jamboree. And then we're coming all the way back down to heart of Texas. So we're going to have a race at Elmont. So that'll probably be all the Texas trips. We are going to hit those and then Boot Hill. And so we'll be down there for about 8 or 10 races, something like that.
Yeah, it kind of seems like you know who's going to be listening to this podcast because you're tying it directly to us. So that's awesome. The Heart of Texas Speedway, you didn't get a date on that one. Is it going to be sometime at the beginning, the end, the middle?
It's actually May 3rd and 4th. It'll be the first weekend in May, and it'll pay $5,000 and $5,000. $5,000 win the first day. I think it's $600 to start, and then the second day is $5,000 win. I think it's either $800 or $900 to start. So. Be 2 great shows. Looking forward to working with Jerry and Selby. I think Selby's still there, and David and David. But we haven't been there for a while, and looking forward to getting down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know anything? I'm just curious. Do you know anything about the 50,000 to win show they're having in September next year?
No, all I know is Chase sent me I didn't know it come across on my phone as something weird, and I was like, I ain't opening that. So, and then I texted him and said, "Who is this?" And he said it was Chase. And then Derek Ramirez sent me a message. He's like, "Did you see that thing?" And I was like, "I didn't open it." So, when I looked at the date, I'm like, "Well, that's great. That's right on top of our fall jamboree. That's not going to do anything for us." But I believe Knoxville had moved their late model race up in Iowa. So we're going to we were moving our jamboree, but so it'll be cool to see a 50,000 win race down in Texas.
Yeah, we definitely have needed it. We haven't had anything like that in a long time, so I'm excited. Well, you kind of already answered this, and I just want to make sure maybe there's something more. Obviously, the USMTS is your creation, your baby, if you will. What have you been working on? What are you working on this winter to try to improve your product for next year?
Well, that was the one thing with the payouts. We're working on that, and we got some stuff brewing, maybe with Race and Dirt that we're going to do, that we're going to announce hopefully here in the next couple weeks for the drivers. Instead of paying $100,000 for the points, we're looking at going to $70,000 to win and pay. If you would get 10th place in points, I think it paid $13,000. So the point fund hardly changed with that. So we're just looking at things that can keep making it better for not necessarily one racer, but for all the racers as we continue to try and grow our product. I mean, it's very hard in this world we live in today with the prices of everything. So just keep doing everything we can in our power to keep racers going is what it is about. I know that Lucas Oil and the World of Outlaws, they weren't going to have so many 50,000 win races anymore. They were going to go to kind of a paying better money throughout the fields. So I think they kind of have the same feeling as I do, that we need to make sure all the racers are getting taken care of.
Well, that's certainly a statement that I'm going to agree with. I think you guys are onto something there, and it's going to continue to help your car count improve, which is from a competitor standpoint almost scary to think about. But I know that's what you want, right? We need a lot of cars, and honestly, I say that selfishly. There's no doubt that when you have more than 30 cars show up at an event, as a participant in the event, you just feel that it just got to the next level. Right. You know that you have to be on your A game. So anytime there's more than 30 cars, and you really start to even feel more pressure once you get over that 80 number. Like you said, there's only 24 people making that starting field. And the rest are going to be non-transfers. So, well, kind of moving right along, where do you see the USMTS in 5 years?
Hopefully it's still kicking along right here where we're at. I mean, we always have goals to get bigger and better and take it to another level. As long as we can keep doing what we're doing and averaging, getting good crowds and getting racers to come and race. And what I've learned, and I've said this before, what I've learned racing my stock car, and I only race about 20 times a year, but I want to race against good guys. I want to see if I'm any good at all at it. And so I want to race against the guys that are national champions. I want to race against, and that's what we're going to keep striving to do, is we keep working hard to get the locals to come and race with us. I know we have the ARMS series out there in USRA and the Tom series down there in Texas. It's awesome that we keep outlaw modified racing going down there. But that's kind of where we want to go with it. I mean, yeah, we want to just keep, it was funny because I told someone that my next goal was that I want to, whatever the World of Outlaw late models pay and whatever the Lucas Oil late models pay, 1 year I want to pay more than they do to win the national points. And I'll make that happen 1 year. I'll promise you.
I think if you're a USMTS current driver, or maybe you're in preparation to become one, that's got to be pretty promising to hear, because they are not slouching in their pay, especially when you compare it to a modified. So that's awesome. Well, I guess my next question is this: are you tired of hearing racers and or team owners complain about the cost of racing?
It's hard to. It's when people are pulling in with $800,000 truck and trailers, it's hard to listen to people bitch about prices. I can tell you that on the USRA side of it, I mean that's somewhere where we hear more of the. I mean, we don't hear a lot in USMTS. I mean, the cost to race a car is expensive. We understand that, and that's what the difference in the classes are for. I don't necessarily like. I want to see racers move up. There's some damn good racers out there that are racing in limiteds and factories, and I understand they can't afford to move up. But that's one of the things that racing. I mean, anything you do in today's world is expensive. I mean, if you want to be the best fisherman out there, you're gonna buy the best of everything, and that's just the way the world. That's the world that we live in. The biggest problem is that we've done this to ourselves as racers, and as fishermen, and as bowlers, and everything. Is is if you're running the best product, if you've got the best stuff on your car, oh, I got to go have that stuff. And so people will switch and go to that stuff. And, I mean, will the prices of this stuff ever come down? I mean, I sure think it can. I think that tires could come down. I mean, will it happen here in the next year? Probably not. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. But it's pretty tough to hear people complain about when you come in with a brand new dually pickup or whatever you're coming in there with. It's tough to hear you complain about $100 race tire or that kind of stuff. So you just kind of take it with a grain of salt. And we all know it's expensive, and just keep living on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know that being the owner of all the different sanctionings and tracks that you are, you have to kind of answer that wisely, right?
Right.
So that was a good answer. I like that. All right. One thing I absolutely suck at is taking care of my physical and mental health when I'm on the road racing. And in particular, when I'm usually on the road racing, it's with you guys. And I've seen you and Janet walking the dogs, through the facilities and things of that nature. So tell me a little bit about do you ever feel like you have less energy when you're on the road? Does your diet suck? What does that look like? And how do you and Janet stay in good shape?
No, that's one of the things that, I mean, we have a very nice motorhome. We had it built to what we wanted in 2016. And that's one of the things that we very rarely do is we'll eat out. We always take our food with us. We're always, I mean, my goal on every weekend that we're racing is to get, I mean, most people's goal is to get 10,000 steps in a day. And of course, that's always my goal is 10,000 steps a day. But a lot of times when we're doing races, especially my weekly racetracks where I'm doing the track work and everything, I'll get in close to 25 to 30,000 steps in a day. And so we always take Harley out for a walk and always walking through the pit area. And I mean, that is one of our goals is to not let ourselves fall apart, to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's easy to do in this society, like you said, especially eating out and things of that nature. So let's talk about what motivates Todd Staley. Are you driven by money, relationships, success? Like you're 25 years into this. What motivates you to keep going? It's
just like I said, I started working at the racetrack when I was 5 years old, so I've always had this passion for racing. I lived like 3 blocks away from the racetrack in Webster City, and I mean, I used to pick up the garbage and clean the bathrooms and just kept working my way up the ladder. And then I was flagging the racetrack when I was the weekly flagman when I was 16 years old. So I've just always had the passion for racing. And then of course we have a competition in our office every once in a while, like on sponsors. And so like, okay, let's go see if we can get the most sponsorships today. Well, no one will even play with me anymore because they know that I have a good chance of getting all the dollars. And some of the worst are you call a guy and you tell them, yeah, it's a $10,000 sponsorship, and they'll be like, oh, that's it. And you're like, oh my God, I could have got more. So it's one of those deals that, of course you're always motivated by, there's just so many things that motivate us. Money, of course, is always a motivator. Like I said earlier in our podcast here, is I really, really, really have been working hard to try and figure out what it takes to get more people into the grandstands for our events. And that's one of my biggest goals is I think every one of our races should have 1,500 to 2,000 people in the stands. I mean, we have great racing action. We have great drivers. And our number one goal always is to have the races over at a decent time. I mean, you've raced with us enough, that we, up north, especially Minnesota and Iowa, we're done by 10 o'clock. I mean, you come down there, granted we start a little bit later because it's hotter and all that. But then first few years I was doing the Southern Series, I was like, oh my God, we're racing at 3:30 in the morning.
Hey, don't start talking crap about the factory stocks like that, okay?
Oh, but no, I mean, when you love what you do, I mean, you're just motivated to do it. And Ryan asked the other day, I mean, in January I turned 55 and Janet's ready to retire. She's ready to be done doing all this all the time. And I mean, when you're having fun doing it and you enjoy what you're doing, I mean, you can just go on and go on. One thing I have noticed, though, is as I've gotten older, we used to leave Texas and I could be home. We left Petty, Texas at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and it's a 12-hour drive. I'd be home at 9 o'clock the next day. And that's gotten a lot tougher doing that now. So I end up usually having to pull over for a little while.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I think it's interesting. Something you hit on is because I kind of, as I've started this podcast, I love comparing and contrasting what I do for a living versus the people that I have the pleasure of talking to. So you're trying to generate leads for sponsorship. I'm trying to generate leads for real estate,
Yep.
right? Kind of a similar concept there. And I love that, that you brought in the competition aspect of it, because we do the exact same thing in my office here. I'm located in Flower Mound, Texas, just north of DFW Airport. We do the exact same thing, right? We make it a competition. And some of people would look at it as maybe you're being cocky or you're arrogant, but when you believe in what you're doing, you believe that you have people's best interest at mind, and that you would put your services up against anybody. It makes you want to go for it that much more. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Yep, I agree 100%.
Well, kind of piggybacking off that is, how do you we've talked about kind of keeping you motivated. You love what you do. You've always loved this sport. How do you keep the staff motivated? Like, is it just important that they have to love racing just as much as you do, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, when you have your family working for you, and Ryan sees a big picture at the end of the rainbow, that this will probably be mine someday. And Jameson is the same way, which is Ryan's 8-year-old boy. So hopefully that what we started just keeps on going for years, and we're not racing electric cars here in the next 4 or 5 years. But yeah, I mean, we have a great staff that, once again, as long as you make it fun for your employees, and they enjoy what they're doing. It's funny that we've had Bryce Hall worked for us, and Sarah that works at my office worked for us, and they've at one time they've all quit, and they've all come back, and they're always like, well, the grass ain't always greener on the other side. So we just try to have as much fun with them. We give them plenty of leeway on what they're doing with their jobs, how many times you have to be in the office, and just so forth. And we just try to have as much fun as we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you've had some awesome people. I mean, you mentioned Bryce Hall. That's one of the best guys I've met coming throughout the racing community. So that's kind of how I want to wrap this thing up, is talking about the relationships that you build within this business, and how the racing family, I mean, I've always seen everybody pull together. I think of the Grant Youngins Memorial and so many other storylines that I've got to witness in my time of following the USMTS. Tell me a little bit about what, kind of the relationships that you've built, and maybe even one of your favorite stories that you've had experienced over the last 25 years.
Oh, I mean, there's just so many stories that, I mean, you could just go on and on and on about racing stories and things you've done over the past 25 years and even longer. Because like I said, I've been working at a racetrack for a long time, but I mean, it's just amazing how tight you get, especially like on the USMTS series, how tight you get with everybody. I mean, I feel like I could go down to Louisiana and talk to the Hennigans or anybody that's down there that's raced with us. And just like even walking through the pit area as the president of the USRA, I mean, so many people walk up to you and talk to you. And I mean, we'll be walking in a store somewhere and someone will be like, hey, Todd, how you doing? And it's just like, and Janet's always like, who was that? And I'm like, I have no clue. But it's just one of those things that people they just know who you are. And just meeting all these families. I mean, we've went on trips with people before. I mean, Shane and Shelley Sprinkle would be a prime example. We've got to be very good friends with those guys over the years. Several of the sponsors we've gotten to be very tight with, and just so many racers. I mean, we went to Las Vegas with Tommy Meyer and Derek Ramirez and just other people, Brian Rowland, and we've just had a lot of fun over the years. Just being just I mean, what was crazy was in 99 through 2005, Jason Hughes and Tommy Meyer and John Tesh and all those guys, I mean, none of them would leave the racetrack until we were all ready to go, and we'd all follow each other. And it was that was probably some of the most fun we ever had, was just being part of that whole group. You'd go there'd be a time going down the interstate, there'd be 13 big haulers like right in a row, and it's like that made a lot of fun. And even today, you got a lot of the different camps now. Like I said earlier, we had 17 different chassis win, so you don't see the Mars row of 12, 14 cars anymore, because some of those guys are in Mullins cars now, and some of those guys are in Hughes cars. So the pit area is definitely split up a lot because of all that, but it's still great to have a great bunch of guys that, we treat them all like family. And what's cool is most of them, if you get a flat tire, you pull into the work area, there's 15 different guys over there trying to help get your tire changed. And that's what racing and family is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been awesome, and I'm sure it's getting thousands of shares and people, thousands of listeners. If you had one takeaway you wanted, maybe it's a racer, maybe it's a fan, maybe it's a promoter. If you had one takeaway for them today, what would it be?
Oh boy, I don't know. There's a lot. It was funny. I was just scrolling through social media last night, and I seen Sean Graham from over in Louisiana. Yep, talking about entry fees and I get some of the entry fee stuff. But I got another quick story I'll tell you too. I know you got to get off here in a couple minutes, but we had, everybody that's a racer that thinks that they know everything about it they really need to try promoting, because there really isn't very much. At the end of the day, if you have a race that makes $1,500, that's pretty damn good, because you'll have over the course of a year. Granted, there's some racetracks that are different, but you're going to have more races that are going to lose money than make money. And that's probably just my problem, because I pay too much money in all my weekly tracks. But I had an IMCA track up here in Iowa that told me that he pays $400 to win, $300 per second every week, and it might even been $350 to win. I can't remember. And he had a race, and he averaged like 20 cars. He had a race that paid $2,000 to win, $300 to start, and the guy that wins every week did not show up. And he says, I went and asked him, why don't you come to this race? And he says, because I know all the good cars are coming and I'm not going to win. And he says, yeah, but you win $300 all the time. He says, $300 is what you're winning every week and you win. And he says, it's not about that. It's about he says, you have to win the races. Otherwise, why come? So I was like, that's very interesting. So I know sometimes that the money scares people away. They know that they can't compete. And like I said, when I go race, I want to race against the best to see how I stack up. So there's just a lot of people have different mentalities towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we can keep going, because I'd love to know how do you usually stack up and things of that nature for people that may not have you on social media or get to watch you when you do get to race. Todd Staley is quite the wheel man behind the stock car. It's pretty fun to see. This has been a blast, man. I always end the podcast interviews with this last question, and I want you to kind of really think about it. Is it worth it? Is all the stress? There's a lot of stress that comes with being successful, right? There's a lot of bad blood that just comes with all that. All the sacrifices that you made, all the time spent on the road. Is it worth it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you just said is, I think that, especially in today's world, is a lot of people don't like to see. I shouldn't say it that way, but a lot of people, when someone's successful, they won't go support them, because they're like, well, what do I want to support them for? They're already successful. And I don't know if it's jealousy or what it is, but at the end of the day, yes, like I said earlier, I mean, we get to be with family. We get to do what we love to do. Yeah. So it's definitely worth it. The stress, I just booked a World of Outlaw late model race today at Hamilton County Speedway. And my wife's like, oh my God, now I'm going to be stressing here for the next 3-5 months, waiting to see what's going to happen. But no, I mean, you have to take risks. You have to, there's always rewards. most of the time there's some rewards at the end of the day. And but at the end of the day, I definitely think it's worth it. Just being with family and getting all the friendships and everything. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a blast, and I just, again, want to thank you so much for coming on here, especially coming on the day that I called you to see if you would come on. Man, I tell you, do not call Todd Staley unless you're ready to get after it because, man, I called Todd this morning. He's like, yeah, how about this afternoon? And I was like, whoa. So thank you.
Well,
thank you for...
It's a rather crappy day here. We got down to Florida on Sunday, and we come through the clouds in the plane, and we have not seen the sun. And today's Wednesday. We have not seen the sun yet in 3 days. So, and it's raining pretty good here today. So, no, today was a perfect day. It's tough to go do anything in sunny Florida, as we were told. When it's not very nice out.
Yep, that's awesome. Well, like I said, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you guys probably at Hunt County back in March. Wishing you guys a successful 2024 season and look forward to seeing you guys on the road. So, Todd Staley, thank you so much for being on the show.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Accelerate Through Life podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you get your podcast. See you next time.